Have you ever played the game Life Makeover, started reading the story because you were just so excited to jump into a new game, read a couple of chapters and slowly started losing interest because you wanted to get back into the crafting, and then ended up not reading the story anymore and now you're totally lost? You and me both, let's talk about it. Hello everyone! Welcome back to my channel and welcome back to a very special life makeover video. I say special because I have been working on this particular video for almost exactly a year now. I started this project last year full optimism, thinking that this was going to be the biggest thing ever. Turns out it was even bigger than big, and I spent a lot of hours working on this and I couldn't finish the full project. My plan was to cover all the chapters in depth on life makeover and really dissect everything that's being said. However, a couple chapters in, I realized there are a lot of plot holes in the story and there's just so much information to go over, so I ended up only going over about 7 chapters of this story, and that's what all that's in today's video. I will not be doing probably the other chapters as in depth as I do in this video. However, I do want to continue playing the story where I kind of left off in this one and do a sort of reaction gameplay to it instead, so kind of that we're still reading the story together without having to dissect everything that's being said, because again there were a lot more plot holes than I thought there would be. Also in this video you figure out why I really dislike Roy already. Okay, he's just a little bit of a snob and that comes into the story as well, so I figured to just give you a little teaser on that one. Also a little disclaimer, of course there's going to be spoilers ahead for the first 7 chapters of the game, and I'm going to be referencing as the main character to us or we, because this character is just whatever you name it, so it is the YN, you know. And lastly, I will also be skipping over the parts where you kind of have to do the dress up part, because all the levels, like every other level has a dress up part, so it's kind of an incentive to be like, oh, we gotta change our outfit, but I kind of gloss over that because most of those don't really make sense. So without further ado, let's start from the beginning. We start off with the introduction of one of our main characters, Ashley. She's our older sister and is giving us a call about seeing our post on Vienna, which is the universe's big social media platform. And she's calling to remind us of an appointment we had to see our new house. And she calls out our subtle screen addiction and proceeds to send us the address for the house so we can go check this out together. And that is already for our first level. Our next level starts up after the visit and we find out that we agreed on buying the house because it was a seeing, but we bought the house. And here's also revealed that Ashley is a well-known private detective and also runs her own firm. Then we say something really stupid because we're expressing that we'd rather have an exclusive island with a villa on it, which to me is so ungrateful because we literally just bought a house. We literally just bought a house. And then we also expressed that we want to own houses all over the world so we can live whatever we want. And it seems like we just not realized that frications are a thing for a reason. And Ashley just laughed, probably because she's thinking like a little sister talk, you know. And Ashley takes out a magazine with a girl group called Black Sugar Girls on the cover and is asking if we know them. And we don't know them, but it just so happens that Ashley is friends with the most popular girl in the group named Annie. And she invited Ashley and us to come on vacation on her private island. Well, how convenient is that? Ashley calls this the graduation gift, implying that we just graduated, and she mentions how unique Black Sugar's clothing is, and that could probably be an inspiration since we are a fashion influencer on the Vienna platform, and we start packing full of excitement. We arrive at the beach house and we go ahead and drop off all our luggage, and then we head into the restaurant to meet the girls from the group, but they aren't there yet. Instead, we hear Ashley discussing with an unfamiliar voice, and it is unclear what they're really talking about, but Ashley seems kind of let down. And the man tells her whatever they had previously discussed was not worth spending any more time or resources on, since it wouldn't be profitable. Then we get a close-up of the man, who is obviously tall and has a slight frown and thin lips. Overall, he's just giving off very rich vibe, and for some reason, we judge him for eating a sundae that looks really good but doesn't look like it will fit his aesthetic. So we sit down next to Ashley, who gives it another try, whatever project she's trying to continue, mentioning that data isn't everything, but the man quickly cuts her off and saying that this is a business and not a charity, and saying emotions aren't going to help with this. That was the end of their discussion and also the level. Now it's finally for us to say something, so we're like, wait, who are you? And Ashley quickly introduces the man as Gerald, the chairman of Endpoint Technology. We now seem to recognize him from past project launch conference, and we cut right to the chase, straight up telling him that he's wrong regarding the discussion they just had. Though at this point, we don't even know what they were talking about. So we tell him that it makes sense that as a businessman, he wants to maximize the profits, but that Ashley is right because data isn't the whole story and that emotions can also bring unexpected results. Then everyone just goes silent. And Gerald stares us dead in the eye, and he looks like he wants to say something, and then we get like really nervous. But then Ashley breaks the tension by saying like, oh, it's just work stuff, there's no need to argue, and she offers us some ice cream. Literally the first impression we give is that the cup looks plain and way less fancy than Gerald's ice cream, which again, girl, how can you be even more ungrateful? You're here on a free retreat. And of course, we are surprised it tastes way better than it looks. And so now that the tension is gone, we apologize to Gerald for getting a little bit carried away. Mind you, about a topic that we still don't know what it was about. But surprisingly, Gerald suddenly agrees that we have a point and decides to give whatever it was another chance. Now, finally, we are asking, what is this all about? But Gerald says that it's a trade secret, and before everything is final, we're not allowed to know anything. So that's great. At that moment, an angry lady storms in yelling about how all her clothes got damaged and completely in panic because she needs those clothes for tomorrow night's live stream. She's crying, and a shy girl comes right after her softly saying that she shouldn't be too mad because her clothes also got damaged. And the angry girl starts wondering who could have done it since they are on a remote island and there shouldn't be anyone else but them, and suggesting that since they are damaged and not missing, that it was someone that did this on purpose. And the shy girl apologizes for them being late for dinner and introduces herself as Julia, another member of the Black Sugar group. Julia asks if we're all friends of Annie's, but gets cut off by the other girl who recognizes Gerald and is also asking him if he's friends with Annie's. And she introduces herself as Beth, the third member of the Black Sugar group. And she mentions how she and Annie have always been good friends, but she finds it very odd she never mentioned Gerald before, and just proceeds to swoon all over him about how big of a fan she is. And she even tries to get his number. Gerald is as emotionless as always and just says,
"Thank you. Hope we can collaborate in the future."
Ashley quickly swoops in to correct the situation, mentioning that she was the one who was invited and she invited Gerald and that Annie doesn't even know him that well. Then Ashley asks about the damaged clothes, and Beth explains that she's really worried because she has promised a magazine to take photos, but only clothes that she now has left over aren't as good a reflection of her image. And Ashley mentions that we are a well-known fashion blog and we can for sure help her out since we brought all our camera equipment and everything on this trip, as one does on vacation. But this all works out since we help her out with taking the pictures for the magazine. Beth, Julia, Ashley, and us all head over to the bathroom to get ready to style her with the clothing options we now have left over. Finally, someone starts to wonder why we haven't even seen Annie yet, which is just so odd to me because they're on a private island, and wouldn't they all just fly in together or like at least see each other? So after Julia starts wondering this, Beth just goes straight into gossip mode.
She's the type that cares about her appearance so much. If she can't find the right clothes, she won't show herself.
So now everyone's concerned, so we rush over to see Annie in her room, and to no one's surprise, her clothes are also damaged. And instead of feeling bad for her, Beth once again goes straight into blaming mode about how Annie should have checked the security system before they all showed up, and how Beth herself obviously would have checked it out in person before they should even invite other people to come over. So all Annie responds to this is,
"Do you think I'm as free as you?"
And Beth, of course, goes straight into defense mode, claiming that I was just worried about you. So once again, Ashley steps in to try to calm down the situation, and we go into detective mode trying to see if these incidents are related, beginning with Annie as she starts to recall her day. She tells us that she arrived at the villa in the morning and stayed in her room to get some more sleep, and at that point her clothes were all still fine. In the afternoon she heard Beth and Julia had arrived, so she went out to chat with them to talk about the upcoming live stream. She grabbed her shawl right before she went to chat with them, and by the time she came back the clothes were wrecked. We asked her if she knows who could have done this, and she mentioned recently there's been a growth in the amount of haters that she gets, including way more mean messages and threats. And at this point Annie starts slowly drawing her own conclusion and panicking about the possible haters hiding in the house or her room or somewhere in the villa. Annie presses about how important it is that Ashley finds the culprit as soon as possible. And Julia is very impressed by Ashley's skills already, and Annie brags about how famous of a detective Ashley actually is, and that's also the reason that they became friends. So they don't really mention a lot about this, but it seems that Annie hired Ashley in the past because she thought that she had a stalker, which turned out to be just a stray dog. Annie asked us to style her for a formal live streaming that there is tonight. After styling Annie, we all head back into the restaurant. Annie is very impressed, and so are all the other girls, by the outfit that we made. And Beth mentions how her fans would call her dress up probably a disaster because even though she's an idol, she doesn't really do much for her clothes. And then she offers to throw a party this evening, with Ashley chiming in that saying that dinner's on her. And this is where some confusion comes in for me, because we are on a private villa and there's a restaurant on the villa and Ashley is offering to pay. But then Julia mentions that there doesn't seem to be enough fruits or food, and then Gerald mentions that the ingredients of the restaurant are really good quality and that he already used some of them, implying that he made his ice cream. Next, Ashley states that Annie said that they could just use all the ingredients as they pleased. And of course, Beth is drooling all over the fact that Gerald can cook. Annie says that the restaurant has run out of ingredients and the rest is in the storage room. So Julia offers to go get the stuff from the basement and invites us to come along. So is this a restaurant or a kitchen? And is there no staff? Wouldn't the restaurant have chefs that would also be responsible for fetching the ingredients? What's going on? We head downstairs together with Julia to the cellar where the fridge is absolutely stacked with food, and thank God we came down here to grab our mango fruit dinner. I don't know what they discussed, but all they seem to be looking for are mangoes for a whole group of people for dinner. But we find what we need, and Julia wants to get back as soon as possible because she's getting cold because she's only wearing like really thin clothes. And she's trying to conversate with us a little bit about how famous Ashley must be and how much money she would probably have, which is a really weird thing to say to someone you don't really know. And also she sounds really jealous, mentioning how she's friends with Gerald and how important Gerald is, and then we kind of downplay, it's like, oh, he's just a friend, even though we literally walked in on them having a business conversation. So what? Just as we are about to head out, door locks from the outside. The lights turn off and Julia starts crying and panicking, and we try to call for help, but there's no mobile reception all the way down here, so we're banging on the door hoping that someone would hear it. But the villa is so big that there's no way they could actually hear us, so we get really close to each other trying to stay warm, and Julia fears that by the time that they actually find us, that it'll be too late and we'll be frozen to death, and screaming for help until slowly we just start to pass out and just fades all to black. We don't know how much time has passed at this point, but suddenly the door opens and there is Gerald. We get out and put on some warm clothes, and Julia is just crying because she's so happy to be out there. And because he is such a gentleman, Gerald takes off his coat and put it on us. And then we finally wonder how they came to find us, and this is where I even have more questions. I know this villa is big, but there's no way that it can be that big that there's this many cellars, right? Because they could have easily split up and looked at all the cellars if there was more than one. And it's not that weird that they found us, but we say we're just confused because our phone didn't have GPS tracking down there. And he says,
Your robot eye.
I don't know why they say I instead of AI, but he says robot eye. The robot eye is also outside of the story a character that often returns explaining certain gaming mechanics. So far has been no mention or acknowledgement of what this eye is and how big it is, and if it's always floating near us or what. Even we are like, eye? And he calmly explains that this has a built-in GPS that obviously Gerald built and invested himself because he's just that talented, of course, and he made it just so that there's always signal as long as it's charged. At this point, I'm starting to question if Gerald is an AI himself because we ask him the most obvious question. Why would you stall that in AI? And as the bot that he is, he completely avoids the question and just says,
It was originally designed and built by me.
yeah, we know, sweetie, we know that you made it. Then he tells us it has more modules and that are still being tested, which is all super fake. So again, obviously, we want to know what exactly, so we ask, how many other features are there that we don't know about? And all he says is,
That's a long story.
and that's the end of that. Ashley chimes in, basically echoing what Gerald said, and she's happy that we're okay and that she was worried. And then there is the one thing that stands out to me. She says, fortunately, Gerald remembered the eye's function. Does this mean that Ashley didn't know it was there? We had never met Gerald before the trip, so it either must have been that Ashley gave this device to us, which she wouldn't just have given to us if she didn't know exactly what it did, because she's very protective over her little sister. But then why would she mention that Gerald remembered instead of her? She's a world-famous detective, so it's safe to assume that her memory is also above average. But the thing is, she does know about this device because in the first level, she mentions that she sent the address for the new house seeing appointment to AI. Or is this a public well-known product that is being sold? If so, why does no one else have this device? I have a lot of questions about this and I hope we get more answers in future levels. Everyone has calmed down a little at this point when Julia's phone suddenly gets spammed with messages. She says she never received so many message notifications and they are all very hateful and threatening messages and everyone's just shocked. Quickly, Gerald has a look and debunks this to be an automated program and that it could be very easy to trace the source from where all these messages are coming from. Julia starts crying, but Ashley reassures her that the two incidents once again don't really seem related and that we'll find the one behind this. Because of what happened, everyone is not really in a good mood anymore and Julia heads to bed early. We are also in the bedroom and we spoke a little bit more with Ashley, who seems a little bit more concerned now. And as we lay in bed, we rethink the whole day and what everyone had been saying to us. Everything is kind of weird and there might be a connection between these incidents after all. And while we think about that while we fall asleep, that was our first chapter already. Our new chapter starts off right after we fall asleep, and we seem to be in a recurring dream in a big field with flowers, with one in particular sticking out, being bigger and having some sort of DNA structure on top of it. But when we touch it, we transport into an overgrown room with a big tree in the middle. There's a box, and once we open it, a picture comes out. The man in the photo turns out to be our dad, and suddenly the room just starts shaking and everything falls apart. Everything's on fire, and right at the end of the staircase, a door opens up. As we try to crawl away through the door, the silhouette of a little boy appears, and he waves to us. But before we can reach him, he walks away, and we wake up. We wake up kind of shaken up from our dream and we wonder if there's any hidden messages behind this. And then we head into the living room where we are greeted by everyone but Beth. Ashley seems to wonder where she could be and just like Beth, talks shit about Annie. Annie also does not seem to like Beth either.
That girl is always on time. She has this routine for her skin.
Because of everything that happened yesterday, Julia wonders if there's something could have happened to Beth, and immediately Annie lashes out, which causes Julia to cry.
Stop your nonsense!
It's overall a really strange encounter. Everyone heads into Beth's room, but the room is completely empty and the window is open. So we walk to the window to investigate, but we slip and we close our eyes, scared to fall, but we ooh a bit with Gerald and Ashley wonders why there is such a big ass bear in the room anyway. And Annie explains that this bear is Beth's lucky charm and that she had it since she was a trainee. Julia also notices there's something really off about that bear. We examine the bear closer and we find a zipper in the back with Beth inside, unconscious. So we all hoist her out of this bear and her forehead is clearly injured. Slowly she wakes up and she just starts crying and crying. I mean, obviously. Ashley offers that she just needs some time to collect herself and get some food and get some clean clothes, which is like, girl, all you need is the police and getting the fuck out of there. If I were knocked out and put in the bear, I'm out. And everyone's just really chill about this. Beth tries to remember what happened, but it's all very vague. She recalls hearing someone entering her room in the morning, and when she opened her eyes, she saw a tall figure, assumably a man, who then knocked her out. Again, as far as we know, there's only one tall man around, but no one even seems to question Gerald, with actually even like straight up asking him if he found anything yet, but unfortunately he found nothing. And we do some speculations about who it could be again, and if yesterday's incident could be again related. But we get interrupted by Beth's phone, who started blowing up with even more hate messages, and Gerald takes the phone to have a closer look as the tank man that he is. Gerald tries to figure out the IP from the sender. Meanwhile, the girl group is just freaking out. Julia is once again crying, and Beth is just gone full rage mode, even concluding this is all Annie's fault because, I don't know.
This is all your fault, Annie.
Beth says that these are the exact same extreme haters that put glue in Annie's drink when she thought it came from a fan. It seems that only Annie had this drink and drank it, and I don't know why Beth is so pressed and mad about it when it didn't even involve her. This whole thing is just so dumb, because why would what Annie's haters do be in her control? If anything, it's all on them for not having contacted the authorities. So what? Annie tries to shut her up, but Beth just keeps going at it, putting the full blame of what happened to her and Julia on Annie. And then Annie just walks off. So Ashley goes running after her, and then finally Gerald says something sensical.
I suggest you call the police.
No! No police!
But Beth doesn't want any, and we are even like, girl, you are in danger, why do you not want it? But Beth values her live stream more important than her own life and I guess everyone else's safety. But to be honest, it isn't really up to her, since everyone else is also in danger and they just have as much right to request help from the police. She goes on about how important her image is and then asks us for an outfit, as one does. Then Ashley comes into our room while the group is live streaming. We mention how weird it is that they argue so much and then just go straight into a happy mode on stream. Ashley basically says, yeah, well, that's just business. We discuss these situations a little bit more and come to the conclusion that the social media is what all of these incidents have in common. We also conclude that this person is specifically trying to target the Black Sugar member, since we were also locked in the storage but didn't get any hate messages and our clothes were all fine. It seems that the culprit knows the area too, since they successfully sneaked in and out of Beth's room, and they also knew the storage and the power source. So Julia and Beth already have been attacked, Annie might be next. Ashley decides to talk to Annie after the stream ends, and she says it'll be safer if we just do nothing alone anymore until we either leave this island or the police is involved. Ashley finds it ironic that this was supposed to be our big graduation gift, but look what this all has turned into. But we express that we want to help her and really want to join the firm now we have graduated. But Ashley is very hesitant about this because she also knows that we've always dreamed of studying in fashion design and she wants us to do that instead. But she also mentions that there is another thing, saying,
"There's actually another reason why I want you to study fashion design. The truth is, we can achieve something that no one else can."
She tells us about this special ability, almost superpower-like skill that we have to explore people's memory. She calls this mind simulation and expresses how scared she was to use it at first, but notices it can really help out to do good. So she says that we lost some of our childhood memories, but now that we're older, it's time for us to learn how to do it too in order to protect ourselves. Though I don't know how mind memories reading is going to help us against a dangerous stalker guy, but I guess it's nice. To activate it, she says you need to do what you're good at in order to activate sentiment in others. Using that sentiment, you can activate mind simulation. Because we are so fashionable, this seems to be our triggering skill, but we have always stealth people, so how come it never triggered anything? So Ashley also explains that we don't have mind realm, which is a system that activates the whole thing basically. It gives us tips and ideas for outfits that could give us more sentiments. I'm not sure if the mind realm is actually a physical thing, since the image shows us like a watery butterfly, but if we have to read the things from it, wouldn't it be a different shape? Ashley also does not want to tell us how she knows about this, so we're just left with more questions. Then she says that it will give us the instructions that we need in Vienna on our phone, and the line between magic skills and abs is so vague in this universe. We have a little sentimental moment with Ashley and she takes out a photo of our little family, including our parents. They passed away in accident when we were very little, and Ashley says,
"We're only alive now because of what they sacrificed for us."
I wonder if this actually means something deeper or is just a saying, but we promise to live our lives to the fullest and thank Ashley for always taking care of us, and overall this is kind of like a cute moment. I knock on the door and Gerald comes in to remind us to enable smart alarm on I before bed. He had texted us, but since we were busy being all sentimental, he came out to check on us. We tell him that we're worried that the culprit will strike again and that he should also be really careful, but he straight up says like, "I'll be fine," and we just move on. Is this suspicious to anyone? I don't know why everyone is so trusting. And he explains that the alarm can also lock doors and windows, so we make sure that AI always stays with us at all times just to be safe. Ashley says that she wants to celebrate our birthday, which is the next day, on the beach tonight at 12 and invites Gerald as well. And she also says she has a surprise for us. Then another knock on the door and it's Julia. She's inviting us to go to the hot spring now that the live stream is over. And honestly, I think this is also where Julia's selfish side comes out. She says she wants to go to the hot spring, but just seems to ask us because she's afraid to go alone. Not really because she seems to want us there specifically. Ashley also wants to take a dip and we invite Julia to our birthday celebration, who then offers to also ask the other girls as well. Julia briefly mentioned how well the live stream went and afterwards Gerald offers to walk all of us to the hot spring. But then we get greeted with I message from the mind realm where we can see the little butterfly again, so it seems like this is just like another application on our phone. While walking to the hot spring, suddenly it thunders and all the lights go out, but the storm continues. Gerald, Julia, Ashley and us head over to the switchboard and turns out that it was just a short circuit and Gerald says he can have this fixed really soon. But then we hear Beth scream from the other room. Gerald quickly fixes the board and we rush over to the hot spring, and there we see Annie knocked out, face down on the floor with a horrified Beth sitting next to her holding her arm. Getting close to Annie, we also find out that she stopped breathing. We look close up and her body is still warm, so it must have happened very, very recently. Ashley says that her head is injured, but she also concludes that this injury by itself wouldn't have been fatal on its own. So quickly she checks her mouth and see Annie's tongue has been obstructing her airway, which is also the reason why she got knocked out. Quickly they perform first aid and she starts breathing again, but she does remain unconscious. Gerald carries Annie to her room with Ashley while we call for an ambulance and stay with Beth and Julia. Beth is still crying and says she also has been hurt. While Annie's being taken care of, we start looking for clues. Gerald of course questions our investigation skills right away, but he does upgrade AI for us. The upgrade is the same as Ashley's on-site scanning, has physical evidence analysis system, and it also makes a recording of all our findings. No wonder she is a top detective. Why isn't this a globally used thing? What is he hiding and why? But either way, we use the eye to scan the room and we have a closer look at all of the evidence. This was the end of chapter 2, and besides the questions I still have about I and about the involvement of Gerald and what it actually can do, I'm also starting to wonder what Ashley's quote-unquote skill is that triggers her mind realm, because so far that has not been explained, and I'm really hoping that in future chapters we also get answer to this question. While back at the hot spring with Gerald and Beth, we try to figure out more clues, noting that because of the bad weather, it would be odd if the culprit just jumped out of the window without leaving any other evidence. Beth is still completely stressed out and asks us if we know where the culprit is yet, though if she were there, wouldn't she have seen the culprit? I runs a quick scan on Beth herself to find out that her hair is wet and she has stains on her cuff. Why would her hair be wet if she was inside? And wouldn't she also be wounded if her attacker came inside? We interview Beth about what exactly happened. She explains briefly that she heard something fall after the outage, so she went to check in the hot spring. When she arrived, a lightning flash struck and she saw the culprit by the window. She says he swung with a trophy but missed, which is the same trophy he hit Annie with. The trophy is special since this was from their first award they had ever won, and she still insists that this is the work of the haters. While we are waiting for the police to arrive, we decide to check in on Ashley and Annie. Gerald reminds us not to be alone until the police arrive, so we make sure to once again enable the alarm on I, and then we head back down to check with Ashley. We update her on the situation, and she also tells us that Annie's wounds have been treated but still is not awake yet. While we wait for help to arrive, we discuss more about the evidence that we found. But the evidence and Beth's words don't check out. For once, she said she came into the hot spring when she heard the noise and didn't leave the room after, but then why would her hair be wet? The suspect also seemed to have escaped from the window and have left footprints, but if what Beth said is correct, that it just started raining after she saw the culprit, then the culprit wouldn't have any mud prints underneath his foot when leaving. Because of these things, we conclude someone's trying to fake there being a random person doing all this. Well, it's probably one of us. Annie's ruled out because she was attacked. Gerald and Julia were with us, so it's only Beth left. But if it's Beth, how did she shove herself into that teddy bear? There must have been a helper helping her, but who? While we look at the rest of our evidence, it seems clear that anytime something happened to Julia, Beth reminded the rest of it. Like for when we went missing in the storage, and the same way the other way around. When Beth was missing, Julia was the one that noticed that the bear looked off. Julia is also the one that invited us to the hot spring, which could indicate that this was all pre-planned. Though I do think this could be a cause. It's a very weak argument because several times before, when Annie didn't show up, it was actually who was the one that started wondering where she was. But this isn't included as part of the evidence. Now for the reason why though. Why would they attack Annie if they're all part of the same group? Wouldn't this also hurt them in return? To answer that question, Ashley suggests us reading their minds, as one does these days, to figure out what happened. Before we head out, Ashley gives us a little bit more tips and insight about mind simulation. She admits that she doesn't know where this ability came from, only that it seems to be some genetic reason, and this is why only some people have it. She says this.
But there are some criminal acts aimed at acquiring this ability.
And it's the reason why she wants to keep a secret from others. I'm not sure what this means, but I'm guessing that others will try and steal their DNA and then try to insert the DNA into themselves. I don't know how that would work. Gerald seems to be the only one that knows about this, and she tells her it's up to us to tell him too if we want to or when we want to. I think this is very trusting of her to tell a CEO of a huge tech company about this, because wouldn't he be the exact person that could turn against her and then put her in harm's way? Maybe I'm just being paranoid. She tells us to activate mind control using fashion is by getting people vulnerable with clothing, like dressing up that something reminds them of an emotional moment of their life. We decide both on Beth since now she's quote,
And after the incident just now, she's relatively weak mentally. Now is the time to find her weaknesses.
It's kind of wild to me how she goes about this, but I guess it makes sense. She shows us a picture of the group pointing out that this was probably a happy time for her, so it also might be her mental weakness. So what do? We dress up as Beth. When we return with Ashley in the room, Julia is actually stunned by what we're wearing. They sure are impressed one way or another. And like a predatory hawk, when Beth is absolutely shocked by our fit, we strike. Mind simulation activated. And just like that, we are in her mind. Before we go into the content of her memories, I just want to picture the situation where Beth and Julia are just still staring at us while we're in some sort of trance, probably staring into the void. Meanwhile, Ashley is talking us, trying to explain how Beth's brain works. I just think that's so funny. The memory is about how the girl group has started from being a C-list group to an A-list group because they won an award after working really hard. Then there was a popularity contest, and Annie was by far the most favorable member of the group, with Beth being second and Julia being third. Beth very much resented Annie for this. Because the group was so reliant on Annie's popularity, it's no wonder that the other girls got very upset when Annie announced that she resigned. We exit the mind simulation and kind of rush into our own room. A concerned Gerald comes in to ask if we're okay and we confide in him about what we all find out, how jealous and hateful the two girls are towards Annie. Gerald says some wise words about being famous and caring about others, and we wonder how such close friends can end up doing such thing to one another. He calls this betrayal and we ask him if he's ever had anything like that. This is another small insight into Gerald's life, though I think it's a bit vague.
But before things became irreversible, I managed to keep them under control. I will never allow this to happen to me again. Moreover, I made it out on my own. What's there to fear? That the reality could be too harsh to accept? At least so far, I don't feel a need to worry about this.
He gives us a cute little pep talk and we get a little bit more confident before we head out to confront the girls about the evidence that we have. Beth is still confused why we're wearing their costume, but we go straight in confrontation mode. While it is entertaining, I just don't see the point of doing any of this. We are still alone with them, without police, and with no one else around, and confronting them is only putting ourselves in more danger, but what can you do, I guess? We confront them with the inconsistencies in Beth's story, but she just keeps denying it. Ashley has also found evidence in a plastic bag that was thrown into the sea but washed back up because of the high tide that night. And if that wasn't enough evidence, Gerald also finds that the messages came from a hired company, and also found out through there that they were hired by the two girls. The power outage was planned, so there would be enough time to hide the evidence, but they didn't expect Gerald to fix it so quickly. Beth still denies it, but Yulia cracks and tells her to just admit it. Crying again, of course. Sobbing, Yulia admits that it was all her fault, and Beth once again just blames Annie.
It's Annie's fault! She's the one to blame! If it weren't for her saying that she would quit the group, this all would have never taken place!
She 100% believed that she should have been the one that got more popular and that Annie just stole her life and that Annie is probably gonna get her karma soon. Girl, you just almost killed the girl. What do you mean? Then she says something I can't quite understand.
Lamont is an augur, greatest of all time. His tarot never fails.
I'm thinking this could refer to their success or them getting signed to a big label perhaps, because after whatever that tarot said, Annie quit the group, which seems to be the peak of their success. Beth says she hates her and feels very used and now just left into the dumps. After her announcement, Beth started faking haters to stay relevant because as victims they could make headlines, get lots of sympathy, more interviews, more opportunity, which I mean, she's a business girl I guess. A terrible person, but I mean, you gotta respect the hustle just a little bit. So obviously we ask her, why would you literally try and kill someone for that? But she denies actually wanting her dead just to scare her as like a fake hater. But because she almost blew her cover, she accidentally pushed Annie over and then she just stopped moving. She keeps saying that she didn't mean it, but like, I don't know, girl. From all that she's saying, it doesn't really sound like she cares or values Annie's life at all. But we double down and we tell her to prove it, and all she says is,
She owes us! It's all because of her selfishness.
Ma'am, you are not making a good case for yourself here. But they got it all wrong. Ashley reveals a huge plot twist. Annie knew that the girls would be dropped by the company if she would quit, so she started looking for sponsors for their shows, with one of the sponsors being Gerald. Because of this, Ashley invited him on this trip to discuss further with Annie. But if we remember how chapter 1 went and we walked in on them discussing, Gerald was not at all convinced that would even be worth investing into the group because of the stats. So I don't even know if that plan would have worked out. Also, if you're so scared about it, why didn't you look for investors before you said, oh, I'm gonna quit? It doesn't make any sense. Annie did all of this just because she loves the girls and she loves the group. The only reason why she's quitting is because she just wants an ordinary life. Everyone just kind of goes quiet and some people are crying. Then we hear sirens in the distance and then it's finally over. The medical team takes Annie to the hospital and we're just left with Ashley and Gerald, presumably taking the other two girls to the police station. Ashley expresses how proud she is of us handling our first case, and since this was such a fun and thrilling night, Ashley is still up for a party, so she tells us to take a break in our room for a little bit and then meet her at the beach for our big surprise. While waiting for Ashley at the beach, we have a small chat with Gerald. The sky is beautiful and overall the mood just seems so much calmer now, even outside. Suddenly all of these beautiful fireworks fill the sky and we look in awe, but only for just a second because Gerald is dressed up really cute and we have to admire his casual cute look. And we chat briefly about fireworks, saying fireworks fit the summer because each season has its own thing and beautiful sceneries. Gerald just says, oh, it's quite common, so we joke and ask if he has a big ass villa too with all of these sceneries, and of course he has a villa. He invites us for spring to see the cherry blossoms in this garden, which is quite sweet. And what do you think? You say back in that situation, yeah, I'll give you 20% off if you buy clothing or accessories from me. Girl, what? Our character has zero romance skill. Gerald suddenly mentioned that he thinks that we have the same magical mind reading skill that Ashley does, and we kind of don't deny that. And it's nice to know that we kind of can trust him in that way because he seems to genuinely care and also says that we did a great job. We are finally with Ashley on the beach and the whole scene is just so warm and comforting. Even though we all changed into a special outfit for the occasion, Ashley's still wearing her health ring. This has not been mentioned before, but it seems that we also have one, we're just not wearing it right now. We have a really cute and heartfelt moment and thanking Ashley for such an amazing surprise and how much it means to us. And then she's wishing us a happy birthday.
Sister, happy birthday.
Ashley collapses. We try to help her, we try to hold her, but she's just turning colder and colder. And in all of the panic, we also get really dizzy, it's going fuzzy, and then everything goes dark. The ambulance has gotten to us way faster than the last time, since there was no rain, but it was too late for Ashley, who passed away from sudden cardiac death. We are still passed out in the hospital bed, while Gerald just sits by our side, nervous about how he has to tell us the news. In the memory, we flash back to when Ashley first got her own office, being her private detective agency, where we once again team the smart band that monitors someone's health. We talk about how exciting it is for Ashley to finally have her dream of her own business and actually being able to help people, and we ourselves also hope that one day we can fulfill our own dream by going to the Parsons School of Design and eventually become a world-famous fashion designer. Ashley suddenly goes mute, and before we can speak to her again, we wake up in the hospital with no Ashley. All stressed out, we wake up looking for Ashley. Gerald's outside on a call and he hears us waking up. He comes in and he also shares with us the terrible news. Honestly, the first time I played through these levels, I was so shocked and I really felt for our character. Gerald says this was not an accident and he highly suggests we get an autopsy, but since we are literally her only family, that decision is all on us. Like I would do personally, is also what our character says and is wanting to find out the truth at the cost of anything. We signed the autopsy papers and Gerald requests a police report as well as having his people look for clues. But all of this investigation won't start until they have the autopsy report. So we say, fine, I'll do it myself because there's no time to waste, but she's dead, so you kind of have all the time. It was not like she was murdered, and if she were, we know who were on the island now. Gerald once again crushes our ambition and straight up says that we are not suited for this. We get upset because Ashley just died randomly and we can't just sit by and watch, and that there has to be more than this. Gerald is gentle parenting us by saying, yeah, but there's a lot of things that you can't do. And we full force go against him, so he kind of gives in and he offers to drive us to Ashley's office in hopes of finding some clues there. At our office, we take a close look at the latest case she worked on, which included an alarming email from the Takeda's house reading, recently we've received something strange. It is said that you are a world-famous detective. You better solve this case within a week or otherwise I will tear your agency apart. Certainly if you can settle it, you do not have to worry about the commission. If that isn't a nice, warming customer, I don't know what is. We also remembered she was wearing the smart band when we were on the night on the beach. This information might show us more. So Gerald, the party pooper, once again says that we cannot access this information because the police took it as evidence. Luckily, we also have a band and we enabled reading each other's data on it. So Gerald now has to check on his computer at the agency to retrieve the information from our smart band. He comes back with some interesting info, and the smart band indeed recorded abnormal data, with this information coming from the Hill Theater in Strasbourg. We have to pause right here for another world-building conspiracy. So far, there has been no indication where in this world this all takes place, but I assumed this was either America due to their accents or China, since this is where the game itself is from. However, Strasbourg is not a real place, but it sounds very similar to Strasbourg, which is in France. Later we see in the background what these cities look like, but they only seem slightly European with a lot of newer skyscrapers in the back. It is also implied that Strasbourg is far away and in another country. However, they all seem to speak the same perfect English. So I wonder if it's some sort of US to Canada comparison. Anyway, back to our level. Gerald suspects this is just some random fake foreign IP address since Ashley didn't take any cases from there, but this is really the only lead we have right now. However, I'm wondering what the location has to do with the smart bed info. I'm going to assume for now that it means that Ashley was in the theater, then proceeded to have something going on, and that was the recorded data, but this is unclear to me. Once again, Gerald says just because we solve one case doesn't mean we can go around and thinking that we're some high-class detective now. Sir, weren't you the one that just told us at the beach how well we did? Pick a side. On our defense, even though we aren't a super skilled detective, we do have some super special power of the mind realm that can be very handy here. Because of the skill, it would be better if we go to Strasbourg ourselves to prevent missing any clues. Gerald agrees on helping us on the condition that we continue the project Ashley and Gerald had been working on for a long time. This has been a secret research about mind construction and neural linkage. Also, once again telling us that we should never tell anyone about this since it could be great danger if this was all exposed. We receive a call from the Forensic Examination Center with some questions. They didn't have the full results yet, but they found some strange red dot on her wrist. We don't remember her having this in the first place, and he presses how important this is and also the reason why they took on this case. They have seen similar things in other cases and request us to come to the center. But of course we chime in about no, we have to go to Strasbourg. What do you know, the examiner just happens to also be in Strasbourg for a business trip. By the sounds of it, it doesn't seem related to Ashley's case, and isn't he also working on that? So why is he there? He offers us to contact the police, but we let him know this is like a private investigation thing, and he agrees to help us with any clues. When we have to go, we say goodbye to Gerald, who takes care of the agency in our absence, and we head out. Skipping over level 6 because that was literally just boarding the plane, we arrive in Strasbourg. We flash back to Gerald for a second and he says something about robot eye. However, the voice says something different from the text. Because the text says robo number 1 or robo number I. This happens a few times in the story where the voiceover does not match the text, so I'm assuming this is just a regulation error and he's just referring to robot I. Getting into the city, we wonder what the way is to a theater and admiring some of the signs around the town. It just so happens to be Fashion Week and one of the models we seem to recognize, but we're just not sure from where. But then we see our bus, so we make a small run for it, but by rushing we bump into someone.
I'm sorry.
We both fall on the floor and all of his stuff flies all over the place. With an eye on his iPad, we see something about a forensic paper. Could it be that this is the guy that we've been calling with? So our character, of course, go full main character mode by assuming that he's just there for us, but he says it's just a coincidence and he hands us his employee card and his passport, which I would also show to literally anyone who didn't ask. He introduces himself as Roy. Meanwhile, we have lost it, I think because we accused him of being on our same flight, but didn't he tell us he was already there? So why would he be on the same flight, flying in, if he was already there? Maybe as a character is kind of right by finding him suspicious. Either way, he doesn't really acknowledge any of this and he says we can just head straight over to the theater, so off we go. At the theater, it turns out we can't just walk in and Roy is still busy getting formal papers to enter. With our character being paranoid that, you know, what if the suspect comes in and destroys the exhibit in this time? Which once again makes me wonder what exactly are we looking for? We could just buy tickets like a normal person to get in, but unfortunately the tickets has been sold out for the early show and the next one is in 4 hours. So Roy just says, come back later, go to your hotel right now, just wait there until I have all the papers ready. Our character is so real for this, but she says she'd rather just wait right there and there because that's probably what I would have done too. I wouldn't have gone back to my hotel. Also in hopes of finding any clues while we're out there. Very persistent, we refuse to leave until we can get in. A random guy mixes himself into our conversation, laughing at how persistent we actually are, with Roy visibly upset with his appearance, and it seems like they kind of know each other and even asks why he is here. The guy says he's invited because it's the last tour of the troupe that his friends work for and introduces himself as Larry and a friend of Roy's. Roy denies this in the world's monotone voice and Larry calls him so heartless. Larry is such an extroverted flirt that he invites us to watch the show with his friends, which we gladly accept, so now we don't have to sit for hours and hours waiting to get inside. Larry's friend Nina shows up, ready to lead us all inside. They have a little chit-chat and Larry compliments Nina's makeup. Then he asks if Salome is still busy and wonders if she blocked him. Nina says she's still busy, but Salome asked her to get us all inside. Nina asks about us and Larry introduces us to her with her saying,
"A friend of my teacher is a friend of mine."
We don't know much about Larry yet, so I wonder what he teaches. Heading inside through the backstage, Nina asks about Larry's new novel being released and he gets kind of flustered. What novel? Turns out Larry wrote a best-selling detective novel called Meteor from Hell. A story about a female diviner revealing the truth with tarot cards under the starry sky. Interesting. We wonder if Ashley also read this book and if the symbol is related to the book, but this might be my personal human error, but I don't remember a symbol. I'm looking for it. What symbol are we talking about here? So I'm hoping we get a little bit more about that later. Nina raves about how much she loves his stuff, but Larry just cuts her off and says they're just boring words and just that he's very excited for the show. Unexpectedly, we run into Salome backstage with Nina being surprised because she thought Salome would be in her lounge. Because as it turns out, Salome is the main lead of the show. Robot Eye does a quick and rude unprompted scan, noticing a scar and of course her beautiful dress. She seems a bit panicked overall and most of all just tired. Nina lets us know that the show is about to start and we should slowly start seating ourselves. A new guy walks up and is asking if Salome is ready since the show is just about to begin. Nina introduces him as the stage manager Liam Green, which just reminds me that this is the first person we've been introduced to with a last name. Nina tries to get us to move before Liam gets to us, because he really seems to make her nervous, but too late because he just noticed us. Nina introduces us as her friends this time and Liam tells us to enjoy the show since it's the last one in the tour. Noticing Larry, he gets really annoyed asking why he's here again. None of the men in the store really seem to like him.
Are you here again?
It's my first time being here.
Don't play dumb with me. Did Salome ask you over? You won't stop flirting even when she's abroad, will you? Do you have any shame?
It's not like that. He...
What? Do you think I wrongly accused you? How did he find you here? With his hunch?
It's not like that.
I don't know what's going on between all of these people, but Liam seems very controlling, calling Larry scum and that it's Salome's fault for leading him here in the first place. It gets kind of awkward and we finally all had just to our seats. Nina was kind enough to give us the best seats and mentioned that it's best if Larry doesn't go backstage anymore to see Salome, mostly because of Liam. We were all kind of worried about Salome and what would just happen now, but we all have faith that the show will do well.
Believe in her. Just like a meteor, she leaves all her brilliance on the stage.
This man has such a way with words. Damn. The curtains open and the performance starts with Salome looking absolutely stunning. For chapter 5, I need a discussion about the inconsistency in this story. This chapter specifically was very difficult and confusing at times. Names, times, places are not lining up. I will try following my assumed truth, but if I'm wrong here, this is why. Now let's continue our story. Starting with this level we have just finished, I assume, watching the performance, and the first thing Roy asks is if we found anything. So obviously we say no because we just watched the performance, so what is there to find? And we go on a little spiel about how pretty Salome's dress is and the details on the stage, how it sparkled. Roy is like, what does it have to do with anything? And we admit that probably has nothing to do with the case, but then we say, but my sanity told me that I can't rule her out just because of her appearance, for this is the only clue. What? What clue? What does she have to do with anything with our sister's death? What? We think about how Ashley would act in these situations. To make things even more confusing, Roy says,
the more clues you get, the clearer the case will be. That's what she told me.
You didn't know her? All of his connection to Ashley and us is after she died. I am so confused. We don't acknowledge that either, so I guess they did know each other, but it was just never mentioned or written down, because else he would have said that he knew Ashley, no? We walk out of the theater to think and get some fresh air, and we run into a lady who approaches us and talks about us overhearing us talk to Roy about Salome's dress. Turns out she's actually the designer of the dress. We mention our own brand on Vienna where we post our outfit of the day pictures, but to be honest, I think this is kind of insulting to an actual clothing designer to compare ourselves to them, since we just are some influencer. She's very eager to follow us because after all, we are the main character. This is also where we found out it's pronounced Vana and not Vienna like I've been saying.
Forget it. We can chat on Wana about this.
For some reason, so from now on I will pronounce it right. The lady introduces herself as Manon and also as the costume designer of the show. We are shocked that Manon is such a big name, and I'm not sure if that is an insult or us just being really humble and not recognizing her. The speaker announces that the show is about to continue, so we cut our conversation short and we head back to our seat. Getting quickly back to our seats, Roy shames us for our sweaty forehead.
Did you just finish a 100-meter race?
Larry stepped out for a second to take a call, so it's just the two of us. We chit-chat a bit about the show and ask Roy the status of the documents that he had mentioned before, which I think is the papers to stay in the theater after the show is finished, but he literally says nothing. Not a word. I really do not like Roy if you can't tell already, but this man is so frustrating.
I'm back. Did anyone miss me?
Nah.
We asked Larry how he's here so late since security is very strict on latecomer being let in, but he says they just needed some adjustments on the equipment and that's why they told everyone to come back so early. The curtains open once again and Salome continues her performance. At the end of the scene, she gets close to the face of the statue prop and kisses it and then collapses. Everyone claps as the curtain closes, but Larry panics because he knows this is not part of the show, and we rush backstage and call an ambulance. Backstage, the doctor thinks this is an acute allergy. She's in shock and her life is at risk, so she gets rushed to the hospital immediately. Nina responds, in my opinion, a little bit too casual.
An allergy again.
And she explains that she has fainted before from an allergic reaction to a silver lotus, which is, as far as I know, not a real flower. The reaction happened when she kissed the flower during a photo shoot. Roy has a close look at the statue and noticed there's some suspicious powder on it, just where Salome happened to have kissed it. Roy mentions that he's also been in contact with the police in advance for Ashley's incident and that they're now already here and informed about this case, which is interesting since we specifically told him that we didn't really want the police involved, but okay. The police also suspects foul play, so they are starting an investigation. Leon calls himself a family member and wants to be with her at the hospital, so I wonder if him and Salome are married. But like a full deja vu moment, he sees Larry and he flips out again.
What are you doing here?
It's they who found her down and called an ambulance.
She had never been involved in an accident until you were here.
Roy says they have to solve the case first and then they can help us look for clues for Ashley's case. Busy day. He also convinced the police to let us help them with the allergy case as long as we don't intervene. Test results show that the statue was indeed covered in silver lotus powder and it caused an allergic reaction. We investigate the backstage. One nitpicky thing I want to notice here is that by the time we start looking for clues here, it is 4:45 in the afternoon. Earlier we established that the show starts at 4. The average theater play is about 90 minutes to 3 hours long, and we also had a break in between. Is this play only an hour long? Even at 90 minutes, they would not have a break after 20. Backstage, we find a fog machine that also has the suspicious powder on it, and on the tablet it's scheduled to be used at 7:30 that night, which would be a different show. There are also shackles which Chalamet used on her stage, also contaminated with the silver lotus powder. One thing I found very odd is the huge tarot card found on the wall in the backstage, but doesn't seem to be related to this case or even noticed by any of the characters. The police tells us she left her lounge, went through the corridor to the backstage and then got onto the show. The corridor probably has more information because of the cameras. Roy asks us if we have found anything new yet, and we conclude that it is someone that knows their way around the theater as well, knew that Salome was going to kiss the statue. It could be someone in the audience, but her allergies weren't known to the public, so it's probably someone that she knew. The police is rounding up the investigation backstage and is asking everyone to leave, so we head out. The officer tells us that Salome was in her lounge at the end of the corridor during the interval with 3 other people that went there at the same time. He tells us the camera footage is at the control center, and right in front of this officer's face we say, "But I can play the recordings here if I use I." Hello, girl, you are in front of a police officer. He doesn't know what an I is. And I'm like 90% sure this is not legal to do so. But okay. This is where once again I'm starting to doubt myself, because how can this game be this wrong? But it shows that Nina entered the lounge at 7:06 at night. So could it be that the show has been going on for 3 hours and that the interval would make more sense this way? But the timestamp showed in a different time than when we were at backstage. So for now, let's just assume that was indeed 3 hours and this was now at night. Larry also enters the lounge at 7:18. Nina left again 6 minutes later, and 9 minutes later, Larry leaves with something in his hand. The officer says that this is an exhibit found in the lounge, which means he returned after taking it out. The officer confirms this, and when Larry returned, Liam was already in the lounge and Nina also entered again, I guess. The 4 left the backstage right before the show began. Also important to note is that Salome had put on the shackles at this time. Before we can enter the lounge, the officer has to mark the evidence in the scene, so we wait out in the corridor. Realizing we're suddenly so thirsty because we haven't drank any water since coming to the theater, we head backstage to get some water to the cooler. Roy talks some sense into us, saying,
You seem to have forgotten that this is the crime scene. The victim went into shock because of an allergen. I've never seen such a bold person.
We straight up say we were careless and are deflecting hard by asking if he doesn't ever make any mistakes. To me, this is just such a cringy thing to say. He also says this:
Communication efficiency prioritizes everything.
Which pisses me off too, because he's the one that kept ghosting us in real life. So they're both really cringy. Our thirst has been quenched thanks to a water bottle Roy got from the police officer, and we sort of thank him for it. I don't know if this is supposed to be like a cute little moment between the two of us, but I don't think it is. Larry comes over saying that the police wants to talk to him and asks us if we're also in line to talk to them. But we explain that we're helping them, and this is where Larry starts nicknaming us as Miss Detective, and it's my favorite thing ever. And Larry's just so cute, I can't.
I don't expect such a beautiful lady to be a detective. Greetings. Then what can I do for you, Miss Detective?
We interview him first since he was also in the lounge and shares how he met Salome. They met during a performance and he hit it off talking about art. She introduced him to Nina, who would often lead him backstage if Salome was busy. For whatever reason, he got blacklisted, but Salome did call him during the interval today. He left the lounge during with Salome's glass to get her some water, which explained our unknown object. The officer let us know that the lounge has been cleared and that there are other witnesses still being interviewed. So in the meantime, we head in to investigate. And what do you know? The time stamp says 5:45 in the afternoon. The times are wrong and I'm not crazy. We go through her stuff and we find a copy of Larry's book signed by Larry, addressed to Nina, wishing her a happy birthday with the ink still wet. This might be also why she called Larry over. Then Roy says some tarot related stuff, and also turns out that he read Meteor from Hell, but just because he was bored. Yeah, right, Roy. There's also a lipstick with both Salome's and Nina fingerprints on it, some skin damage serum, and a glass with only Larry's fingerprints on it. Did she never drink from it? Then we also find her tablet, and there is a line that I find very interesting. Can there be clues Gerald mentioned? Could it really be that Salome is related to Ashley's case? I thought they were doing this tour all over the country. Would they be here all the time? Else, why would this look back to Strasbourg? I hope we can just get more answers and after we solve this case. Roy says,
We can only read the information provided by the police, and we have to apply for permission for other content after the case is closed.
Well, it didn't stop us earlier from just scanning people and hacking into whatever camera system we fancied, but okay. After digging through all of Salome's stuff, the police has also finished their interviews. We can talk to the witness too now. We decide to talk to Nina first since her fingerprints were found on the lipstick. We run into Nina in the corridor and she's pretty upset. The police won't let her into the lounge because of the investigation and agrees to answering some of our questions as well. Nina and Salome are good friends and often do each other's makeup, which explains the fingerprints. Same as with this time, she came into her lounge to fix her makeup. Larry came in and Nina left to prepare the statue and generally cleans the area where she would have to perform in. In her testimony, she says she came back and was surprised to see both Gerald and Larry there after she returned. Gerald? Yeah, I'd be surprised too. I know we're only in chapter 5, but I'm so tired of these errors. Gerald isn't even in the situation, so this misspelling is just very sloppy. At this point, Salma had put on the shackles and Larry fed her the water, which also explains why she didn't have her fingerprints on the glass. Salome and Liam had been together since the first show, and he has always been a very jealous guy and blocks any man in her phone. Nina also doesn't know what the cream in the drawer does or how Salome got injured. After speaking with Nina, Liam shows up very angry. He also wants into the lounge, but just like the rest of us, he has to wait, and we ask him some questions as well. He also recalls how he met Salome on a tour in Brinia, where she also became quite famous. Brinia is, from what I can find, not a real place, but I did find some clues that this could be in Greece. The Greece writing being this. But this can also be very well a translation error, I'm not quite sure. However, this being a tour and going around Europe from France to Greece wouldn't be a totally crazy idea. The glass in the lounge was gifted by Liam and Salome always had it with her during tours. When he came into the lounge, he thought Larry was annoying Salome, but she was just too timid to turn him down. He also doesn't know anything about the creams or the injury. Heading back to check in with Roy, it's finally time to put all of our evidence together to see if we have any results. It lets us know that Salome isn't awake yet, but he did get the results back about her injuries. It shows that she did fall unconscious because of the allergy, but besides that she has many more injuries. A combination of old and new wounds caused by sharp objects. It seems to be signs from DV, since she also never asked for help and also was hiding these injuries. This shows that the abuser had been hurting Salome for a long time and all of her injuries were hidden under her dress. This also explains her scarring ointment in her lounge. We conclude that this is highly likely to be Liam, but Roy says that we don't have enough evidence for it. Now it's up to us to find enough proof. The investigation shows that the substance on the shackles and the statue were brought on by Salome's head in a fingerprint pattern. We just don't know what the source from it is. But it seems that she put on the shackles as soon as she came in contact with the substance. She was staying in her lounge the entire intermission, so it's time to narrow it down. We start off with ruling out people, beginning with Nina. However, there is a flaw here. We start off selecting why she's innocent, and this is because Salome put on the shackles after Nina returned to the lounge. But then 2 seconds later, we completely contradict this by saying that she left to get the props ready, and then Salome was in shackles after we returned, which is literally the opposite, though I do believe she was already in the shackles. The thing that they're going with here is that Salome touched the substance, then put on the shackles, and that's why Nina is ruled out. But to me, this doesn't really make any sense, but for now, let's just go with that. The evidence from the security camera shows that Nina and Larry both left the lounge while Liam never left before Salome stood on the stage. If Larry was guilty and left with the glass, he couldn't have made sure that Salome would touch anything other in the meantime. Also, when he came back, Liam was already there, so he would have seen him. Liam would have had all the time because he never left. The question now is what is his motive? He seems to keep a very low profile, but he does lash out, especially in front of Larry. And maybe he abused Salome because of how Larry acted towards her. So now that he has a reason and he had the time, we just have to figure out how Liam made Salome come in contact with the substance. Liam let Larry feed Salome in the lounge, which is very out of character, so could that be part of it? Now it's time to put on Salome's dress to shock Liam into some sweet old mind simulation. Walking into the hallway where Liam is rounding up his interview with the officer, he sees us and is confused, and then boom, we strike again. Liam's mind is a depressing place just filled with cages, and one cage big and shiny while the other one seems old and rusty. The big shiny cage has a red feathered bird in there, similar to Salome's dress. She's like a bird locked in Liam's cage. I wonder if the old cages resemble old relationships that other women were chained into. The cage only has one bird, but there are two feeders, with a pattern very similar to Salome's glass. Could it be that this isn't the only glass that there is? Under the cage is a really big eye, always watching the cage, symbolizing Liam's controlling behavior. Liam's mind is just filled with controlling and monitoring, and there's no sign that he even loves Salome at all. The only way to set her free is to get Liam behind bars. We exit mind simulation and Liam is very upset that we're wearing the dress, but we say we're just changing again and the officer calls us a weirdo. So I do wonder if mind simulation is just a split second, but to us the time maybe stands still perhaps, so it isn't as awkward of just staring into the void. Heading back to tell Roy what we have found, we need to confirm some details specifically about the special glass. It was a souvenir from Brinia, which is known for their crystal and handmade tinware. Our character seems to see this as the thing we needed, however I don't think this is the evidence that we need for now and that is any related to the case. We asked the police to analyze the dust in the smoke machine and compare it to the material of Salome's glass, and that there will probably be disregarded bags or gloves around covered in our allergens as well. This seems to be everything we need, so now it's time for our dramatic confrontation with Liam. Liam, the officer, Roy and us all centered in the theater, confronting him with the fact that we have all the evidence we need. We start our accusation of Strong by calling him a scum boyfriend, as any professional detective does. Nina seems really surprised for some reason, and Larry not so much.
How is that possible?
Oh?
Liam is not impressed, but then we whip out the evidence about Salome's glass. The glass had only Larry's fingerprints on it, and Liam says that this could be Larry since it was the only one that pestered Salome all day even though she was loyal to him. The officer shares that the powder is not dust but rather the same content of the object at the scene, which was the glass. As it turns out, tinware items become powder at a very low temperature. Liam swapped out the glasses with an identical one before she put on the shackles, which resulted in her to touch nothing else until she was put on the stage with the statue, who she then kissed, with the contaminated glass being destroyed into powder and put into the smoke machine. Liam probably wore gloves, so they should be somewhere around here.
According to Lacard's exchange principle, items present won't vanish for no reason.
Yeah, no shit, Roy. But all of this really seems to snap Liam.
No, it's not me!
Liam tries to defend himself, saying he could have done this anytime if he wanted to and wouldn't have to go through such great lengths. But we know the truth. As long as he can destroy her most important things in her life, he can control her, knowing that without performing that she has nothing left. The police chimes in saying that the fingerprints are found on the exhibits and it's all over for him, ready to be arrested. Liam digs his own grave a little bit further.
She didn't listen to me even if I've hit her a few times! I was forced to do that! I just wanted her to behave!
Manon chimes in that she understands now why he only wanted the dresses made in a certain way just to hide her injuries. And then Liam continues for a little bit more.
Bullshit! I was the one who made Salome popular! She is my most perfect product! She ruined everything herself! She deserved it! She betrayed me! I didn't need to kill her. I just wanted to give her the punishment she deserved! She has to understand that she will never have perfect shows if she betrays me!
But now it is really finally over. The truth is out and Salome is finally free. Manon's impressed with our detective skills and lets us know that she follows us on Wana and we are free to contact her anytime. Then she gives us a tarot card. She explains that Salome gave it to her as a good luck charm and now she's giving it to us. It is the same one that we saw backstage, though I don't think it is as big, so I'm not sure if this is the same one. Manon cuts herself off and leaves, which is just so funny and awkward to me.
Well, hope she soon recovers from the relationship and moves forward. Enough. I have to meet a client tonight. Bye.
Now since the case is closed, the police can finally help us look with our case and we send over the information from the tablet to Gerald. Let's hope that we find our next clue this way. We quickly get our results and it's not related to anything. It was just the VPN that was used. All of this was for nothing. Roy tries to cheer us up and say that at least we help a DV case work out, but since work time is now over, we should try and relax before returning home. This is so funny to me because Roy is like, I also still have some extra time, and then Larry jumps in to be like, whoa, I also do not mind relaxing with Miss Detective, and I know a coffee place nearby. And before we can even enter, Roy cockblocks us and is like, actually, she has things to do. So we do exchange numbers with Larry and Roy is being very, very friendly about it.
I wonder if you were interested.
She has things to do.
Similar things in the future. I may need your help, Miss Detective.
Whatever.
Miss Detective, we should stay in touch after you returned.
Don't bother.
Then Roy offers to go to a park since we have the rest of the day until our flight is the next morning. He says something he has to share with us, so we head there together. One small error I found again is that he calls his first the Relic Park, and then when we head out we call it the Heritage Park, and then one sentence later we call it the Ruins Park, and then we arrive to the destination it says Ruins Park again. Oh well. We arrive together with Roy at the Relic Heritage Ruins Park, and there is a beautiful sunset. Roy wants to tell us something that was related with Ashley's case. A similar case he had seen before, it was a small boy dying of a heart attack when he was setting off fireworks, with also having identical red dot on his wrist. We ask him if he has seen a strange pattern of a skill during investigation, which was the odd symbol. He says he doesn't remember anything, but the other case did have a weird symbol of a sword related to it. And if these two cases are related, we recently did see a sword and a skill on the cover of Larry's book, which is exactly the tarot cards that revealed the truth to the heroine. I really like this connection, but in reality this is kind of far-fetched. We just both hope that we find the truth, and as long as we keep looking we can find out more. We return home to the agency and we get a message from Larry asking us for a favor, and we agree to meet him near our agency. Our phone is blowing up, and what do you know, Menon has tagged us in a post and now we even have more fans. Just as we are about to change for our meetup with Larry, he calls us. He wants to make Meteor from Hell into a series and is asking us for fashion advice for the heroine.
Inspiration. Let's talk about the details when we meet. I'm looking forward to seeing you, Miss Detective.
We arrive at the Gibson Cafe and we see Larry behind the counter making coffee. He makes us some coffee and tells us it's owned by a friend of his who also taught him how to make coffee. Like there isn't anything this man can't do. He asks us about Ashley and he says he's only known her by name, but he does know that she's a really famous detective. He gives us a limited edition book merch, which to be honest I would buy if Life Makeover ever decides to make real life merch. It's a tarot in the same style as the heroine from the book. He explains that he wants to meet with Ashley since the heroine is also a detective and he wants some real life advice on his writing. It gets super awkward telling him that she's dead, but we offer to help him gather information to the case of what is public. But this confuses me because I don't think he meant a particular one, but apparently he does. But he says it's not needed since he already has all the public information. Larry hands over a pile of papers which include magazine interviews, a case report, and a thank you letter of the person in question. I'm now very curious to know more about this particular case. Larry is very quick about moving on from Ashley's death and tells us it's time to move on, but I think that's kind of weird to say to someone you're not even that close with, because as far as I know we've only talked for this man maybe like 2 days. We tell him we're taking over the agency for now and he says we should rename for a fresh start. Personally, I really like the idea of paying tribute to your dead sister, but the name Buttocks Agency is a little bit more dignified anyway. Flipping through the papers a bit more, thinking about Ashley, we decide it's time to head back. But as we get up, someone calls to us who we don't really seem to remember, but it's Sean! Wait, who's Sean? Before we get into chapter 7 and getting to know this mysterious Sean, I noticed something funny with his voice acting. His voice is very high energetic most of the time, but if you have played through any of these levels yourself, you notice that sometimes when he's serious he sounds totally different. So much so to me that he sounds like a completely different actor. I just had to put that in. Anyway, let's continue with our story. Sean seems very excited to see us and has hopes of us remembering him, but it doesn't ring a bell. He winks at us and suddenly we remember how when we were younger, Ashley would ask their neighbor kid to babysit us when she would have to leave. We found it a crazy coincidence, but Sean says something odd that isn't really explained.
Someone told me I'd soon have a surprise in store for me. I guess you're the surprise.
Who said that? They don't touch on this anymore, but I hope we find out more later because it's such a weird and random thing to say. We awkwardly try to give ourselves another cute nickname like Larry did, but this one is a little bit too forced in my opinion. Sean wastes no time and hits us up, asking us out for dinner sometime to celebrate our new career. Though I'm not sure how he would know that because it's not in the news and I don't think that we tell him. We exchange information so we can get our dinner date going. Turns out that we had posted a vlog and Sean also happened to see that the day before, and that's what he was referring to as our job of wanting to be a designer, which makes a lot more sense now. He tells us how talented we are, but before he can finish he gets recognized and we hear people talk about him and taking pictures. Turns out that he is a famous idol. Sean tells us that he had hoped that we found him sooner and reached out, but unfortunately that didn't happen. A crowd starts forming and he tells us to change outfits so we can sneak out of the back. I don't know how much changing outfits will help, but we do as he says. As we escape from the cafe and run out to the street, he gets a call. But as the gentleman that he is, he insists on bringing us back to the office first and he admits he just wants to spend a little bit more time with us. He also asks us how Ashley is and it gets kind of awkward. So awkward in fact that he completely sounds different.
Me? No, I'm okay. How are you holding up? Should we take a breather?
I know. I just want to stay with you for a little longer. Sorry. I didn't even know about this till just now.
We tell him about what has happened and we kind of just stand there in silence, and then Sean's like, well, someday the truth will come out, and he gets into a car and he leaves. What kind of gentleman is this? Next day we head in early into Ashley's office looking to find more things in her old files, hoping to get another clue within any of her old contacts or cases. We find a puzzle and I find a match with a quote, quest number 145. The client's name is Miko Takeda and the case is still unsolved. We recognize the name from the angry email we read a few chapters ago. Ashley received the commission right before the accident, so we start to wonder if this has anything to do with her death, which in my opinion is a little bit far-fetched, but at the same time we don't have any other leads anyway. We read the email that we got. How much longer do I have to wait? Has the secret of the puzzle not been solved yet? I'm going crazy? You have the last day to give me an answer or I'll tear your rubbish office apart. How friendly. So, we solved the puzzle and it appears to be some sort of landscape. There's nothing unique about the puzzle and even I can't find any information after scanning it. But we take a closer look and there seems to be a writing on the back stating the name Makoto Takada, July 14th with a big red cross through it. We ask I to track the relationship between our client and Makoto and if the July 14th may be his birthday. He is a 20-year-old and the only son in the Takeda family. His birthday is on the 13th of July and the son of our client Miko. If this date is not his birthday, we have no idea what this could possibly mean. We email the client telling them we had a close look at the puzzle and we immediately get a response. However, this is another nitpicky moment I just have to. We arrived to Ashley's office early in the morning and then the first email from Takeda was sent at 11:05 at night. There is no date, so I assume this was maybe sent the night before, but the immediate response email was also sent at 11:05 at night. The email reads, I have to talk to you. Meet me in Igano now. I will pay you 3 times as much as before. Remember, no one else shall know our meeting. Here we have another made up place called Igano. If we assume this is in Japan, there's about a 14-hour difference if we ourselves live in the States like we earlier assumed. This would explain the time. Either way, we decide to go and get ready to leave. We arrive at Igano Airport after a few hour flight just before noon. I assume this is the same day since we were at the office very early, but that would mean there's some crazy hours of flying around the world, so for now let's just let that slide, I guess. We receive a call from Sean. We have a little small talk and he tells us he has to cancel our dinner date because of his agent. He has to be in Igano for a week of business, and while he's on his trip, his agent often handles his phone, so he was just letting us know that he probably won't respond. What a coincidence. Again. Roy 2.0 very much. We tell him to wait right there since we are also in Iguano and to meet him after we just get off of the plane. But a man named Roscoe Miyano introduces himself and tells us he's here to pick us up. We want to wait for Sean, but he insists that we have to leave now or else we might be late. We didn't have enough time to speak to Sean, so we left before getting a response. Mr. Miyano explains that the detectives in the area are too intertwined with the local police, and Mrs. Takeda doesn't want any people to know, so explains why we were flown in. On our way to the residence, the roads are blocked by another car. Around 8 men surround our car with big baseball bats. Miyano tells us to stay seated and they're probably just some ruffians that have a dislike for the Takeda's house. He gets out to talk to them but immediately gets beat up and pushed around. In a panic, we order I to call the cops. But just when one of the men tries to open our door, Sean comes out of nowhere and kicks him out of the way. He proceeds to beat up every guy there and they flee in their own car, which is wild to me that he's just that strong in my opinion. We get out to check if Sean and Miyano are okay. Miyano's wrist seems swollen and he looks for his watch in a panic, but of course hero Sean also has found the watch and returns it to him. He is so unfit to drive us with his wrist like that and he agrees that he should go to the hospital to get it checked. However, Miyano turns down our offer to drive to the hospital, insisting us getting there in time is way more important. We still call him a taxi and say that we can go to the Takeda house by ourselves. Sean offers to drive us there and claims to be our assistant and we kind of just play along, just so he can get into the super confidential case and drive us to where we have to go. His work doesn't start until tomorrow, so until then he can just play our assistant and help us out for the day. Well, on our way there, we share our information that we know so far, but hearing the name Makoto Takeda, he pulls a face. Apparently he has a reputation for being a spoiled rich kid that his family buys him out of trouble whenever he's in one of another scandal. We speculate that this puzzle could be some sort of revenge and Sean agrees with this being very plausible. When we arrive to the Takeda house, the door automatically opens scanning the license plate. The house is more of a mansion with even a private garden. Before we head in, Sean shits on our outfit and tells us to change, so I guess we do that since he's the fashion expert.
How about changing your clothes before heading in? The house places appearances above all else. They wouldn't appreciate guests breaking the dress code. If you don't want them turning their noses up at you, I suggest you change. As for the style, well, a little ladylike is okay.
We walk into Miko and Makoto being into an argument. She does not want him to go out anymore, but Makoto does not agree and is upset and bored and just feeling locked up. Miko calls for Miyano to talk to him, but we chime in and say that he's at the hospital and won't be back until later that evening. We introduce ourselves as a detective and Makoto is very hostile towards us. His mom shuts him up by telling him that she was the one that hired us. This kind of sets him off, calling her paranoid and calling us basically scammers. He snaps and tells her that he will not stay here any longer, shouting and smashing the fish tank right in front of him.
Surely you must be joking. They're just hustling you. How paranoid can you be? You've thrown our entire family into disarray, and now you won't even let me go out! You're like some psychopath control freak always trying to hem me in!
That's enough, Makoto!
No! I've had it! You just want me to stay home! I refuse to stay here any longer!
Hero Sean dives in front of us to protect us from the flying glass, resulting in some of the shards flying by and scraping his hand, and they even start to bleed. We are both panicked and freaked out, but Makoto just laughs into our face, even saying that he deserves it.
Ha! That's what you get, you moron!
Miko tells him to go inside and he storms off angrily. She also doesn't really seem to care that much because she just excuses herself and leaves. Well, in the courtyard, we tend to his wounds with lemon designed band-aids, which is kind of cute. We have some small talks about fashion and his career, and you know what? He is kinda charming, but just like a little bit. This whole moment is just kind of cute, but I just don't think I'm the type to like Sean, though he's definitely not as bad as Roy. He says he understands if we want to give up the case because how badly mannered the Takedas are, but as the detective we are, we have a duty to find out the truth and help out a client in need no matter how bad they are. And of course not to let Ashley down, and Sean 100% still supports us, and this is something I do really appreciate. There's a knock on the door and it's Miyano, back already with a cast on his arm. Turns out it was just a slight fracture, but he'll be fine. He brings us the message that Mrs. Takeda wants to speak with us in the tea house ASAP, also doing a casual trash on our outfit, but oh well.
Many formalities must be observed during a tea ceremony. Make sure you're dressed smartly and show good manners. For your clothing, I would suggest something neat and noble.
As we arrive to the tea house, a very elegant lady comes out of the door. She dressed up sharp and sophisticated and asks to speak to Makoto about tailoring. Miyano says that he might be in the inner court and offers to walk her there, but she says, nope, not right now, which doesn't make any sense to me, but okay girl. Her name is Aya Matsumoto and she's the top advisor of Amber Glimmer, which I can only assume is a fashion brand since she's a well-known name in the fashion world. She's also the youngest supervisor to work at Parsons School of Design. You know, the school that we dreamed of going to, but before we can even squeeze in an hello, she has walked off already. We shake off the sad feeling of a missed opportunity and knock on the door of the tea house. Mrs. Takeda is sitting behind the desk making tea. By the sound of our last interaction, it didn't seem like Makoto was aware of the hired detective and now she wants to talk with us again, but in private without him. Is she maybe hiding something? Mrs. Takeda reveals that she knows something about the puzzles and fears for her son's safety. The day after the puzzles appeared, something strange started happening. She shows us security footage of a ghost-like girl moving back and forth like a ghost and her hair floating mid-air. She appears in the courtyard, the room, and the tea house. One small thing I noticed on the footage is that the recording icon is of eye, so I wonder if they also have an eye or if we are just viewing this on our own eye. I will not let this eye conspiracy go. Mrs. Takeda is convinced this ghost girl is out to hurt her son, but we counter her by saying that all she does is just wander around. She gets understandably upset that we don't believe her, but we tell her that this is a place too good protected for anyone to just break in. She cuts us off not wanting to hear any other stories than her thinking that this is the main culprit, so we play along and tell her we need to find her motivation in order to protect her son. She has not shown him any of the camera footage either in fear of freaking him out, but ma'am, how are we supposed to talk to him if he's being targeted and he doesn't know anything? She's literally the best mom ever because she just says, you won't get much out of him anyway, so you'll just have to find a way to make him trust you, and then she just dips. Great. We also head out and follow Mrs. Takeda through the courtyard on the way to Makoto's cabin. We reach a cherry tree at the back of the garden and she explains the gate here is the only way in and this is the safest place in the house. He has to practice his kendo here and if he messes up he gets grounded and I assume also locked in there. But before she can even finish that sentence we hear Aya scream. We rush over to check on the situation and it seems like Makoto is dead. The police arrives 15 minutes later and the medics tend to his care. He is alive but unconscious with lots of cuts all over and he has lost a lot of blood. We introduce ourselves to the police and they let us look around as well. That was as far as I had gotten with catching up on this story. I really hope you enjoyed so far for this hour and a half of just me talking about this story and you could keep up a little bit. I'm sorry if I spoke fast in some parts because for whatever reason I seemed a little bit more nervous to record it because it was a little bit different from my regular content. Again, if you want to watch me play through the rest of the story in more of a casual way, make sure to subscribe because that probably will be coming up pretty soon. Since that doesn't take as much editing as this video did. Thank you all so much for watching till the end. I really appreciate it and I hope you have a great day and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!